Today we are going to be painting ballet slippers, point shoes. This is the reference photo. You can download the reference photo below and then go ahead and trace it out using some graphite paper or just coloring the back of the paper with lead from a pencil and then trace it out. You can also, if you like to draw, you can work on drawing that out as well. And let's get started painting. I am so excited to be painting these ballet slippers with you today. When I was younger, ballet was one of my favorite things. And so it's just absolutely lovely to get to paint these slippers. The color that I see on the reference photo is really very, very light pink satin color. And if what you wanted to, you can absolutely go ahead and try to mix this particular color. Or if you wanted to make the shoes a little bit more pink, you could do that as well. It's really going to be personal preference as far as what color we are mixing. So I'm going to begin by painting the lightest color that I see. And this highlight on the shoe right here down the middle of the one on the right and then on the sides of the one on the left are the lightest color that I see. So I'm going to go ahead and paint that color anywhere that I see this very light pink. So let's see if we can mix a color that is somewhat like that. All right, I'm going to begin with this I'm using an Artistro set, and I'm going to start with the blush pink here. And it gives us a very light pink. I'm going to add a lot of pigment, and I'm going to add just a touch of yellow. And a little bit more water. And I'm going to begin by laying down the pink anywhere that I see it. And this is going to be the lightest color pink that I see. And I'm using a very, very light amount of pigment and more water really than pigment here. For anyone that's watched my tutorial on kind of finding the right water to pigment ratio or getting the right amount of water and pigment on your brush, I'm using, if we were thinking about this like rain, this would just be kind of mist. You can still see through it pretty clearly here. And again, I'm taking the pink anywhere that I see it on my picture. So it's the lightest color pink. It's this nice blush pink with quite a bit of water, very, very little, very, very, very little pigment. And I love painting objects like this because it gives us the opportunity to really dive into shading, into light and dark and shadows. Which is what we're able to really get into right here. So again, I'm just glazing or laying down pink wherever I see it. And it's right here as well. These straps. And one thing I wanted to talk about, some watercolor teachers will say, once we get this down, they'll go grab a hair dryer. I think I'm going to have too much water on my paper to use the hairdryer, I always end up like there's a little pool of water. You may or may not be able to see it over here. That I feel like I would end up kind of blowing all over the place by accident and getting it really where I don't want it to be. And I don't want to take that risk. So some of you might go ahead and just, grab a blow dryer and quickly make this dry so that you can kind of get on with it. I'm just going to let mine dry naturally. And I'm using round 16. It's because it's big and it will cover a lot of surface area. So it almost makes it go a little bit faster. Speed doesn't really necessarily matter. You can go as slow as you'd like or as fast as you'd like, but it can be a fun exercise to see if you can speed up your process. I took ballet when I was younger for a number of years, and right before the year I was supposed to go on point, my parents had to take me out of ballet. I've always been a little sad nugget in my life because I love dance so much. I don't actually have a lot of rhythm. Maybe if I had gone on and danced, I would have. Maybe my parents saved me a lot of heartache. I don't know. But I did actually minor in dance in college, but it was really more of a modern dance program. And I did it because I really wanted to move my body, but I'm not really a great dancer. But I think that moving our body is a really important thing. And dance is just such a wonderful expression of self. So there's something about ballet shoes that always still stirs me. Now, while this is drying, I want to think about this cream inside of the ballet shoes themselves. So I'm really going to think about that color. And it's a super interesting color. It's almost this blush pink with a little dark gray in it. Let's see. Let's see what we can come up with. I'm going to see what happens when I add some gray. See if I can kind of get the color I'm hoping to get. This is a tricky one, but I'm going to go with this gray here. Kind of like that. What do you think? Do you like that color that is just mixing? It's a little bit gray. It's a little bit pink and dirty. Think we have got it. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to add a lot of water in here. And because my ballet slipper where I put pink, it's still pretty wet. So I want to be careful with that. This is not white though, so I don't want that to be white. I'm going to let that be this gray color in here. And I'm going to fill the inside with my paintbrush of the gray. And I'm just going to start with the lightest color gray that I know I'm going to use all over. I'll be filling in, we'll be adding a lot of shadows here with darker gray, but I want this to have color to it. So it's not super different from what you see on the outside, but it is a different color. So we're going to begin with that. Now, again, I'm going to do that same thing here. A lot of water, very gray, or very, very lightly pigmented. And then we're going to need to let this dry. Okay, mine's not completely dry, but it will do for now. So I'm going to continue on with this pink that I have happening, this blush pink over here. And I'm going to just bring it in, getting a little bit more water on my brush pigment. And I'm going to begin over here. I want to add just this middle section of the ballet slippers. And you can see on either side there is a bit of a glare as it begins to round. And so I'm just allowing this to come. And it is definitely pinker. What I'm painting is pinker than what I see on the printout. And that's okay. That's just what I'm doing because I want it to stand out a little bit more. And on this edge over here, I'm just going to really paint what I see. Adding a little bit more water. And adding this in here. It's got a nice little, these shoes have a beautiful patina to them. Bringing that same patina in here on the side. And that just kind of gives us the illusion of that nice glare on the shoe. It's what it feels like we're seeing. And I'm going to let that be like that. Right here, this is a little bit dirty, right? So it looks a little bit greenish, but I want to give it this brown look. As you can see, it's already bringing depth into our picture by having that line. And I'm going to just leave it at that. I don't want to hit any of these spots that are wet with the brown on my brush. So I'm going to keep working with the blush pink and moving it where I see it. So I do see, I want to bring the blush pink over here. And just gently bringing that around. And see where else I might want to bring that in. I might even just bring in just a little touch of yellow into my pink over here. I got too much yellow, but see if I can kind of mix what I was hoping to mix. More of a creamy look happening. And where do I want to put that? I want that to kind of go in this edge. Just letting that kind of look like that. Bring a little more pink in, pink with the yellow. And I'll add more detail to that in a little bit. For now, letting that begin to come alive. Now, on this shoe right here, there is this spot that I do see that is a highlight. And I want to just really make sure I'm capturing that well. I'm taking my blush pink in this spot. It's really fun. There's this little spot right here that kind of comes over. And it's a bit kind of right here. So we've got this highlight right here, and then there's a highlight that comes in right here. So I'm going to bring my pink right here, leaving that line that I see, that highlight. Again, right here is still the darker color, and I'm leaving the highlight line that I see and allowing that really to stand out so you can see it begin to really come alive, I believe, right here on this spot. So you're really starting to see how this is beginning to take form and take shape. Now I'm going to take my pink, and I see really that pink over here. I think that's dry enough for, yeah, it is. And I see my pink down in here. And let's see, where else do I want to make sure that I have that kind of pink coming up? Okay, I'm going to come back and add some brown details on this, but for now I want to give it a little pink stripe right at the top there. And I see just kind of right here, back here is pink. And then I'm going to let that dry a bit. And I'm going to kind of just begin to let that dry. And I'm going to begin to work in here where I see more color. So I'm going to take this gray that we used and I'm going to bring it into the pink. So it's a pink gray shade happening. And let's see if I can do this. Yeah. So it's dry enough that I can really begin to bring the lines in that I'm seeing happening. I see that line right there. And I see a line right here, although I'm going to add even more water. And I am going to color this. I have to be careful because I think this is still kind of just letting that kind of sink in a bit. Now, I also see when I add a lot more water here, get a lot less pigment, more water, less pigment. And I see a little shadow happening kind of right here. And I see that same shadow happening down here. Just letting that kind of darken and kind of begin to pop out. I will add even more in a bit over here, but for the time being, I want to continue on inside while everything is drying, taking care. I'm going to start really bringing in these spots of gray where I see them. And I love when you start to add details to watercolor, how you just absolutely watch the picture come alive right before your eyes. You really start to see what's happening. Just adding some water to this gray. And you see how things kind of shift and change, and it begins to just pop. There's a very light color happening kind of back here, almost on this spot. Just a beginning to allow things to pop and to come through. Now, my shoe is pretty wet here, and I do want to pick up a little bit more of this pink. See how it looks like at the moment, they feel like they don't entirely match the shoes. So I just want to bring in more of this pink, blush pink color to really make the shoes look like a pair. That's just nicely coming together here. I love what I see happening. I want to pick up a little bit more of this yellow blush that I see that I want to be on this side of our shoe, this little rim where you would kind of pull the straps a little, see them come together. And I don't want the pink to bleed into this yellowy pink. So I'm going to be really mindful not to let it touch. But I do want it to just kind of stand out. Yeah, that's really beginning to kind of come alive in the way that I hope it might. I do have a shadow right here that I want to darken up. There's a shadow right here that I want to darken up as well. I'm going to grab a little bit more of that gray. Yeah. And I'm going to subtly bring in some lines right here and right here, knowing that I'm going to bring a lot of gray in over here. Can bring it in knowing that I'm going to do more color, darker color in a bit, but I just want to start to map where that color goes. And it will be a darker shadow that I have encompassing that, but I want to make sure that I know where that shadow is going. Similarly, over here, I might begin to bring that color in, taking care not to hit that yellow pink that I just put down. I want to think about these beautiful little straps. I see the yellow pink highlight right here. And let's see if I see that anywhere else. It's right here. And maybe a little bit right here. This subtle highlights. Just making sure that I have that in. Now I'm going to go back to my blush pink. I want to think about got adding it to the gray a bit and beginning to think about how do I want to add shadow? And I think I want to add that shadow in right here. And it's not dry enough over here for me to do what I want to do. But I see this nice shadow here as well that I can pull that in. And if I get just pink, blush pink on, and add that in here, and it will connect just a touch to my yellow and adding depth there. Just letting that be what it needs to be. I've got a bit of a shadow here and some shadow here. And under here. These ribbons are really all shadow. So what I'm doing is making sure I am capturing all of the shadow that I see. really giving it a lot of depth as we add our shadows. And just letting that, as you can see, this is really beginning to come alive, which is so much fun. My favorite part of the watercolor. Watching a painting come alive with the depth. It's just slowly coming in here. I think I want to add more of just the pink color in certain places. So I'm going to add just some pink here. And I have to be careful where I put that. I see just kind of some pink here. And bring that in right here. And we'll just give it some pink here. This is a little grayer, but we'll let it do its thing. So much fun to watch the colors emerge. And over here, I need to add a little bit more depth in a bit, but we'll just get this going. This is the gray color I'm using over here and here. And I'll drop in the pink in here and let it move in to these spots. So I've got a lot more to do, but the ribbons are beginning to pop. And that's exactly what we want. I'm going to do this here while it's wet, bringing the pink in, letting, again, the ribbons do what it needs to do color-wise. And I want that right here as well. And I'd really like to drop in a little bit more color here. Picking up just some more of the blush pink. This color is so pretty. Give it a bit here. And a little bit here. And checking in here. All right. So, as far as the ribbon goes, I think I am probably as good as I can get at the moment. I might be able to get away with a little bit of gray right here, just really bringing that ribbon forward here, just adding a little bit of gray here. And I will darken that up in a bit. I do want to make this darker. And so I want to bring in a little bit of brown. Okay, that looks a little green, and that's not exactly the color I'm going for. I want kind of a chocolate look. There we go. Like I'm going for the sepia. And I really see in here just how dark that is. And I want it to be very dark. Yeah. Letting that fully get dark in there. It adds so much depth by doing that. Now, I will need to come in here once this dries and add a darker bit. And over here, I want to bring that brown on this side to represent the shadow that I see happening right there as well. So I brought that in. Now this same dark color is right here. Bringing it in over here as well. And these shadows, we could make them a lot of different colors. I could have brought blue tones in. I still might even bring some blue into those particular shadows. And I want to bring this down here. I want to make the sharpness of the brown a little bit sharper down here. Or on this spot. And there is this kind of edge here. And it kind of comes in here, bringing that in. And I see that edge over here. Just bringing that in a bit over here. Now, this has a darker bit to it right here. And I want to make sure I'm capturing that. Really giving these shoes the proper depth that they have. So those extra added details help. And there's so much detail that we can bring into more places here. There's just a little detail of that brown here. And you can see it here as well. You can see it on this little side. It's got a bit right here. And this is pretty dark right here. And I'm going to give it a good amount of gray pink. So this is very dark. I want that shadow captured. Okay. So as you can see, things again are popping. Every time we add a shadow, we are giving the opportunity for a little bit more depth, a little bit more pop. Here. I'm just going to paint this in a bit. This is a little bit more dramatic than what I see, but I'm going with it. Sometimes we have to exaggerate what we see to actually bring more life to our paintings. And that's okay. These are interpretations of what you see. And paintings, you want to give it your interpretation of what you see. You want to give it your own style and pizzazz. Bringing in, I think, a brownish, pinkish, grayish color in some of these spots. This might be too wet for me to get in there, but there's some spots under here I just feel like really deserve some attention. And that might almost be too sharp. So I'm going to see if I can't quite get in everywhere that I want to because it's not dry everywhere that I need it to be to add what I'm hoping to add. But as you can see, each detail, again, like I said, it just adds a little bit of something. And each detail just brings it to life a little bit more. and a little bit more. And details, you can almost work on them forever and ever. They can drive you mad a little bit as you try to bring your picture to life in the way that you see it coming to life. And as you see it come to life, you just want to give it more and more. Trying to put these stitches in, but it's really not ready for me to do that. So I'm going to let that be and let this be, or else I could be kind of really messing it up. Now, while I'm waiting for that to dry, I've been kind of waiting to do this, but I want to now pick up some of this. I think it's cobalt in this. This is going to be my shadow of the shoe. And I'm going to bring that down here. Oh, see, it kind of got in there a bit. I'm not going to worry too much about that. This is me being really impatient. I'm just ready, right? I'm ready to put the shadow in. I'm ready to play and see what happens. So a little bit of my pink got on the shoe right there, or my blue got on the shoe, and it's okay. It's the shadow. It is showing you that that shoe is above the other one, so it's not flat. It's what's causing the shadow right here. And I may even bring a little bit of that into this realm. So this shoe, this part of the shoe, I'm going to make this shadow a little bit blue to represent how it's kind of casting its shadow, and the shadow is a bit blue. Now there's a little bit of blue in here, in this brown blue, and just let that kind of do its thing. So there we go. This is beginning to pop a little bit more. And before I do too much more, I do need to, there's a lot of patience that I'm trying to have in letting it really just sit the way it needs to sit. And letting it, I need to be patient here. But it's hard because I get excited to move on to all of the different places where I see that we could be adding to it. One thing I do see is I've missed this little spot of pink right back here. And I think I didn't do it because I didn't want the pink to get into the yellow rim too badly. And I'm just going to bring that over here. So these shoes are almost done. And this is really a fun project. I see there's a little bit of shadow around this other shoe. So I'm going to come back over here and give a little bit of shadow right here. And bring it around. Bring this light shadow all the way around the way I see it. It's just casting a little bit down. And it's just giving it a nice glow, adding even more depth. And I'm going to bring that same shadow back here. I see it back here. And I especially see that right in here. Being careful not to hit my pink because it will bleed. There we go. So as you can see, it's nice and it's got the depth happening. It's got the layers happening. You can see what's going on. And as this dries, I will add in just a few more details. But I'm going to let that dry and we'll work on those details together in just a. Okay, we will be trying to add details. I think the places that I would like for us to add some more details, they are, for the most part, pretty dry. So I'm going to get my brush a little wet. I want a little bit of blue over here. I see a shadow right here that I want to bring in. And it's along this front spot as well. And it comes down there. And it is also a little here. Okay, we'll give it a little bit of blue along here. And let's see if I see blue anywhere else. I failed to put, there's a ribbon back here, but I'm going to give it blue here and fill that in with blue. We're going to make this stand out with a little bit more blue as well. And just a touch of blue right here. Okay. And I want to get back into my gray color. So I'm going to go with the darker gray. This is the stone gray, I believe. Yeah. And I'm going to mix a little bit of brown into that. And I want to just continue this line right here so that it looks all the way through. And I want this to have more definition here as well. Now, I also see over here, there's this little shadow right here, and it's brownish. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of the brown paint into this spot here. Adding that pink and yellow. And extending that just a little bit down here. And I do see a bit of a line right here. Now, where else? Let's just give a bit of definition to this. And I will give a little nod to that. And I'm going to pick up some brown. I want to make it kind of greeny. And I'm going to darken this here. And darken this here, back here. That just made that pop. Did you see what that did? And that's perfect, the way that just kind of popped up. And I want that to be here as well. So that's a really nice way that we have a little line. And there's this blue line that happens to be right here. And these are subtle things. And you might think, oh, that's really not that big of a deal. And it's not. But the more detail you bring in, the more realistic the shoes are going to look, the more realistic it's going to feel. For instance, this is just not quite as dark as I think it needs to be in order to really give us that illusion of shadow that we're going for. And therefore, this over here also not as dark as it needs to be. But it does need to be dark. And it needs to pop. It needs to give us that extra amount There we go. So as you can see, that added a lot of depth. It just instantly changed what we were doing. And as I'm looking at this, I want to really make sure I'm paying attention to the places where those added details will make a difference. And again, we could be working on details really all night if we wanted to, but I just want to give enough that we have the illusion of all of the pieces of these slippers. For instance, I see definitely a blue-brown line right here of shadow where the ribbon is, and that's just a nice little pop. And I'm going to give this a little bit more. And I want to kind of lighten this bottom or darken this bottom up right here. And this definitely needs to be darker. I see this spot that I have to give attention to. And this spot here. So you can see that I have gone lighter in a lot of these places and allowed myself to slowly build up the color to make it as dark as it needs to be to show the different pieces of our slipper and letting it slowly build up. I think that's a really good tactic. It's just allowing you to let it build, to let it build. I want to denote that this is set further back, so I'm going to make that more of a shadow. And I think we've really almost gotten it complete. So I'm looking at this. I'm sure I will see even more things that I could come back and change if I wanted to, but we pretty much completed this. I'm just adding a little bit more blue right here. Just a little. And it's really more than we see, and that's okay. I want that to really stand out. I want this to stand out a little bit more. Just giving these little spots a little bit more blue. And it's just going to let it pop for us a little bit. And I think I'm going to call this done. What do you think? Is this where you would end it? Okay, I'm seeing one more thing before I call it completely done. And I think that right here, I could darken that up a bit. And you can see that makes it look a little rounded. Spot right here, little folded in. And this can be a little darker. So there we go. There we have our nice little slippers. And they are just perfect. I really like the way these have turned out. Curious what you think. Did you enjoy the way yours turned out? I would love to hear from you of how this went for you. And I hope that you've enjoyed painting these slippers as much as I have.